Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, happy post-frozen frenzy day. We'll talk about that and how ESPN handled that because Zach wrote about that in when we get done with the pre-show, but we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So I wanted to mention something. I'm hearing a lot of criticism today about the Phillies, and that's fine. Fans could be mad. I get it. I don't consider this series a choke job, though. I keep hearing that. To me, a choke job is if you could point to one play, one misplay, one error, one wild pitch, one home run you gave up, that cost the series.
One bad call.
Right. Then you could really do it. This is kind of like, well, this guy went 0 for 35, or this guy went 1 for 32, or this guy, but it's like, the other team does employ strategy. And the Diamondbacks did a great job of changing the way they did things. And that was when they went back to Arizona because they were all of a sudden pitching the top of the lineup differently. Schwarber was seeing different pitches. Now he wasn't getting leadoff homers. That all of a sudden, that affects the rest of the lineup, and there's a ripple effect. I get it. Players still have to come through, whatever. Their players did. But Mike and I talked about this yesterday, and I talked about their frustration with the umpire, and it showed again yesterday because they kept looking back on pitches. That changes your mentality. And the small ball factor. Now with the change in the rules, the way everybody can steal, that's a massive thing. They were getting 4 or 5 stolen bases the last 2 games off of JT Realmuto, who's supposed to be the best catcher in the game. So when you do all that, and not all of it was because Realmuto couldn't throw him out, it was because the runners were so good at getting the pitcher's attention, they waited until they used up all of their throws over, and then they can't do anymore unless there's an out. So all that factored into it. It did, and that's why I can't say Arizona was a fluke because they were 84 wins. No, they figured it out, and Philly didn't.
Well, first of all, I would be in favor of eliminating some of the rules that they implemented, like I keep the pitch clock in the playoffs. That's fine. But 2 throws over. I mean, obviously there's a strategy here now, and Arizona took advantage of it. I think the reason that everybody's saying it's a choke job is because you look at, Harper, Realmuto, Trey Turner, Castellanos, Schwarber, big names, Nola, Wheeler in the rotation, Ranger Suarez, being compared to Sandy Koufax and Christy Mathewson. Well, what the hell was that? And you got a bunch of no names in Arizona. They started Paft in Game 7 and Kelly in the rotation. Not too many people before the season knew who the hell Corbin Carroll was. So
right. I only did because I do prospect writing.
Right, exactly. And then I have a Stratomatic baseball league, and Corbin Carroll was drafted in the first round. So I mean, it's like it's not a sexy, big name, big money team, but they played, the type of baseball that sort of is, they got home runs when they needed
National League baseball.
They played exactly. They played National League.
They were doing all those things, and it didn't happen at the beginning of the series. For some reason, it happened in the middle. One other thing, Mike, that I think you'll find interesting. We know who Dave Dombrowski is, right? He's well known. He's won championships. But what Dave Dombrowski does is he eventually takes everything out of your farm system in trades.
Slash and burn.
Right. So fans now were like, well, we didn't have anybody coming off the bench. We only got Rodolfo Castro, and we didn't even use him at the deadline. Well, why do you think that is? Because your best pitcher, best young pitcher, had Tommy John, and there's not a lot else that other teams want. Again, for the last 2 years, Dombrowski's been trading your young players for known talent. So, yes, he keeps you in this race, and you have a chance to win the World Series, but there's a price for it. And that's what Dombrowski's always done. And so you're going to look back in another year and say, the farm system doesn't have much. And if some of these guys start slipping, then you're in trouble. And that's the part that negates, because again, the Phillies are only going to spend so much money. Like they weren't going to spend as much as the Mets. So, but again, when you make a trade, the other team has to want something from your team. And that's what I took that as, is there wasn't as much that they wanted this year as in other previous years.
Yeah, in 2 years, Dombrowski will have been fired or will leave for another team where he will scorch and burn them.
Yeah.
It just seems to be his MO. And I don't, I think the reason that he gets jobs is in some places he's won, but
Right.
it's at a hell of a cost. So, if you want a team
You
that's
have to win with that strategy.
right. If you want a team that's going to compete every year, Dombrowski is not the GM to hire. If you want a team that's going to maybe win and then you're going to have a 10-year lull where you're going to have to rebuild your franchise, then that's the cost.
Yeah. Now to answer Jay, sure, he hasn't traded a top 5 prospect yet, but again, who have you gotten in trades that's going to cost you a top 5 prospect?
Right. Yeah. No,
That's what I would go back and say.
all right. Eck is endeavoring to get onto the show, so we'll start now, and he should be here any minute. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Happy birthday to John Anderson of Yes, 79 years old.
And he's still got the pipes. And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's start with this. I was just mentioning to Russ while we're waiting for Eck. Interesting situation with a number of teams: Philadelphia, Detroit, Buffalo, still carrying 3 goaltenders over 2 weeks into the regular season. It's working in some places. James Reimer's playing in Detroit. I'm not sure how it's working in Philadelphia. The interesting
not playing. He was listed as the backup once and has not played a game.
Yeah, X computer finally kicked in. The interesting thing, and the reason I bring it up is because of the comment last night from Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, the Sabres goaltender, after their 6-4 victory over Ottawa. And you got to remember, Luukkonen played the bulk of the games last year. Eric Comrie got hurt. They called him up. He played, I think, 37, 38 games. He played well at times and he played badly at times. And they decided at the end of the season to give Devin Levi a shot right out of college. And then at the beginning of the season, they kept the 3 goaltenders and they played Devin Levi 4 straight games. He got hurt. And now in the last 3 games, they played Comrie. And last night they played Luukkonen for the first time. They asked him after the game, about how he played, and he thought he played well. He says, well, it's a little frustrating, essentially. I'll give the direct quote here because I was just writing about it. It's not even close to being an optimal situation to have the first game of the season right now. It's not my decision when I play, so I have to make the most out of it. That doesn't exactly sound like he's made peace with the fact that he's going to play once every 7 games. And when Devin Levi comes back, he's the guy clearly who's not going to play because Comrie's a veteran goaltender. And that's the situation. This is an untenable situation for a lot of these teams to carry 3 goaltenders. And the only reason they're doing it is because they don't want Tampa Bay to claim somebody off of waivers.
So here's my answer to that. Then you can go. I have a quick answer. I did just talk about this on another show. I think if you're going to try and put your guy through, you should do it today. Because at least Johansson's doing well temporarily for Tampa. And while he is doing that, Tampa can't claim everybody. So it's like a game of chicken. Just everybody put him through. You lose your guy, but you haven't gained an asset for any of them at this point. And all you're doing is screwing up your team. Like as an example, the Flyers have Ristolanen's out, right? He's now got a setback. So he's out.
Right.
They probably could use another defenseman coming up from Lehigh. But the problem is you got Sandstrom there. So that's going to negate you from having an extra defenseman around. Even if you're going to have a couple sitting in the box. That's fine. But Sandstrom's not going to play. He's never going to play this year. Send him down. If he gets taken, he gets taken. And I say the same thing for all of them, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no – there's no reason not to. I mean, the reality is that these aren't the players that are going to get you to where you want to go to, right? So, but at the same time, you do get people in organizations that are in love with certain players. So it's like that's the other thing about that, So sometimes they won't. If somebody there really thinks that somebody has potential, you know how this works with scouts. There's like certain scouts that are just like they become the cheerleaders for certain players, and because they were the ones who said pick them, stuff like that. So I think some of that's going on in Philly. I definitely think it's talking.
It's a 1-year contract though, so at the end of the day, if they loved him that much, they'd have given him 2 years like Urson,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think that they love him that much, and I think that the reality is that they it's an interesting situation. It's a tough situation for the Flyers to be in. I think a new situation for them to be in at this point.
All these other teams, same way.
Yeah. Dan is pointing out that the Detroit sent Alex Lyon down for a conditioning stint. That's a solution for 2 weeks.
Right.
So
it's a very temporary thing.
Right.
Tampa wants Alex Lyon in the worst way. I heard about that the other day from a bunch of people. And but why would Detroit do that? Like, why would Detroit put Alex Lyon and help out Tampa? Like, I don't understand that at all. Like,
right, but all these teams are thinking the same way, and only one could actually help them.
Right.
Yeah, and you're in division, like you're in a division where you're trying to make the playoffs for the first time, and Tampa's struggling.
Right. And I understand the motivation for Detroit and Buffalo. They don't want the goaltender that they have helping out a team in their division where that could cost them a playoff spot, because if Tampa Bay gets one of those guys and they rally around him and he plays well until Vasilevsky gets back, then that helps them. But for Philadelphia and for other teams out there, I mean, unless you really love this prospect, this third goaltender, like Russ said, one team is going to put somebody on waivers and they're going to claim them, and then you're going to see a rush of all these other teams sending down their third goalies.
Because it's inefficient roster management.
Right.
Yeah. And we're right at the end of this like salary cap hell, and people know that. So that also is playing into it. That this year is going to be it's the last year we're going to have salary cap hell, and everybody's really excited.
I disagree. Just because there's more money available doesn't mean that they're all not going to spend right to the cap, because they will.
For sure, we'll have new salary cap hell very quickly. It's not like it's just
but next year is not going to be the end of stupid money, and some of these general managers are paying stupid money and not managing their caps right. So there'll be more money to play with, but that's not going to stop GMs from spending stupid money.
Right, like when you do the list for July, for June, whatever. Let's say it's June, and we start talking about it heavily. There are going to be some guys that get paid way more than they should because the money's available and the team's like, all right, I want to get that player. But that player, you would never pay that money otherwise. But because they're going to look at what's out there, see what's available, and overpay. Yeah. Because that's what happens when in a cap year where it all of a sudden goes up like a lot.
Like NHL plus minus leader Justin Hall. It's like, okay, the cap was tighter than ever this year, and Justin Hall got $3.4 million. So even with a tight cap, people are spending stupid money.
They are, and it's always been that way, right? And it always will be that way.
Yeah.
But there are some teams who definitely
Bobby Holik.
Yeah.
But that was when there was no cap. That was when there was.
Well, I know, but I'm just to point out that there will always be stupid money spent.
Yes.
We remember. Yeah. There's certain things that I'm a huge Billy Leno fan, but that contract he signed with Buffalo was absurd.
Christian Ehrhoff in Buffalo.
All those things, and I think that's rough. I mean, I think that's really.
You always have to mention Jeff Finger. Thanks, Esmer.
Yeah. So what did everybody think of the frenzy last night? I want to know what you guys thought of the frenzy last night as far as the whole thing goes.
I love my life.
I'm worn out by the frenzy. I just,
Here's what I thought. I mean, I liked it for, I was watching, obviously, the baseball game. I had the 3 screens, like I said. But when I kind of didn't want to flip around and I wanted most things on the big screen, my wife eventually goes to bed. And so I did watch the frenzy to kind of see how the frenzy was. And I think they did a good job in the sense that what they were showing, how they were showing it. To be honest, I think they did a better job than NHL Network does when they do it every night of the week. But the only thing is I'm still a guy that has to see what's happening in a game to really understand the game. I don't want to watch just goals, because if I watch just goals, I don't really get a good context of how that game was going. Now, great. It gets me to see replays and such, but I can see replays online, 3 minutes after the guy scores. All I have to do is go to Twitter or anywhere else, and I could find it. So I thought it was good, but I wouldn't be a regular watcher.
We're obviously going for the NFL thing, you know, like the. NHL Red Zone thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, it's different sports. It's like, and the reason people like Red Zone so much is.
I'm sorry.
Okay. It's football fantasy is way bigger than hockey fantasy. So because of that.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
Right. So that's a part of it. And football gambling is worth a lot more as far as total dollars than hockey gambling at this moment, right? So that's why it's so popular.
X having computer issues.
I know.
Oh my gosh. What is the deal here? I've got can you guys come back?
Is he on dial-up? I'm not sure what it is.
I feel like I am. I have the best internet I can get from Verizon, lovely Verizon people.
Yeah. This is a commercial for Fios. There you go.
I have Fios.
Now you're okay. Now it seems to be working.
Yeah.
I don't know. It may or may not. Okay, we'll stay with it for now.
It was nice to watch you flip out. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah, it was nice to see you go.
Right.
I know. I was trying to make it as interesting as I could. Yeah.
But okay. I didn't have a problem, even though we were joking about it yesterday. I didn't have much of a problem with the staggered starts. That was fine. And but you know, it's a little weird to have a 6 o'clock game and an 11 o'clock game. And honestly, I watched about 5 minutes of Philly and Vegas. What I did do on ESPN Plus, because you can surf from game to game, is, you know, after the Leafs game, which was the first game at 6 o'clock,
which is a horrible game to watch.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't want to talk about that in a minute, but I was just saying I was surfing around like Pittsburgh, Dallas, and you know, watching Edmonton blow a lead again, and a couple other games, but it was fine. As an everyday practice, I don't know how I would like it. I mean, look in the playoffs. Remember, there's the first round of the playoffs, 4 games on night 1, 4 games on night 2, and they alternate. I think that, you know, during the regular season, I think it's overload to have 16 games. Was it a valid or a noble experiment? Sure.
I agree. I mean, like one game in like 4,
you know, get a splash. Like, that's all. They thought of it. They interviewed Bettman. I saw the Bettman interview, and he just wanted to make a splash, so that's why they did it.
I feel like it was just a coincidence, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We got 16 games tonight. We should do something."
Right? Yeah, I think
that's kind of what it felt like to me. Like, you know, like
the schedule maker knew that they could do that. ESPN probably said, "Yeah, this is great," and Gary Bettman's like, "Okay," and we could publicize it, and it did.
Yeah. An unsung hero I want to throw out today, I think people are probably not paying any attention to, but it's really pretty interesting, is Frank Petrano. Now, you know, good old Frank Petrano.
I don't even know where he is anymore.
Yeah, he was one-time Predator, right?
One-time everything.
One time,
I was really upset when the Predators let him go. I thought they were seriously. I really liked this kid. Well, now he's got 5 goals in 6 games. He scored the overtime victory last night for the Anaheim Ducks. That's where he's playing right now. If you were curious, I mean, it was an impressive goal too. Like I think that, you know,
he could score goals, Zach, but the problem is he's not consistent. And when it dries up, there's not much else to his game. That's the issue with Frank Petrano.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I remember when the Rangers got him, and a lot of people liked him with the Rangers, and then he was asking for what was considered top 6 money. Right. And the Rangers said no, because you're not a top 6 forward. And it's like, you know, in stretches, yes, I think he's a very good player. But, you know, just because he's scoring goals in October,
I mean, he's always been like a kind of guy who like gives you like a spark. Like he's a spark plug type player. And he was that wherever he was. And I was really, there's certain guys like this that I just like, you know, like, and he's one of them. You know, he's definitely one of them. And so when he started, and he's not going to score 40 goals, but I'm just saying that, you know, the reality is 5 goals in 6 games.
Yeah.
For the Ducks is something. I mean, right now it's that's more than anybody else on the Ducks, and the Ducks are filled with little young talent. You know,
he's the leading candidate for the Brian Savage Award.
He's getting 3.6 for the next 2 years. Like I wouldn't pay him 3.6.
Well, Russ, he can. He's a top 6 forward on a bad team, and they're a bad team. So, when that contract is up, he probably finds his way to the next expansion team and makes $3.5 million for them.
Right. All right. Because otherwise he's going to be on the third line and scoring half of what he's scoring now.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about Jack Hughes for a second, okay? Because Jack Hughes is ridiculous right now. Just bit my tongue when I said that.
I mean, has anybody thought about him being a good player?
Yeah, but okay, 14 goals in 5 games, 14 points in 5 games.
He's too small, Russ.
I know.
14 points in 5 games. You're actually the one who sold me on Jack Hughes, Russ. You were the one.
I know. But, I'm telling you, I took a beating that first year. All these picks that I would get, he's not any good. You really think he's that good? And it's like, just wait.
I'll never forget you being at that card thing and you telling me afterwards about the about this kid and he is Patrick Kane. He's going to be Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate that.
And I really remember it. I've ever since then I followed, and obviously he had a slower start, but geez, right now, I mean, the 14 goals, last night he had 4 primary assists, 14 points. Last night he had 4 primary assists. All of his assists have been primary assists, by the way.
I know, which is, I don't like to make too much of a deal out of that because hockey players are right. An assist's an assist. But look, when you get that many primary assists, that's a big thing.
You're passing to the guy who's scoring the goal. So to me, that's that's a big, that really should count more, in my opinion, than the other assists. I really wouldn't have a problem with that. So only having 1 assist on goals often, but people hate that. But the reality is that 1 assist is usually the one that really makes the difference. Quite often, give and goes, when give and goes happen and a third assist is awarded to somebody else, that always bothers me. Just there should be no third assist on a give and go. That doesn't make any sense.
I know, because just getting the puck out of the zone, it's that next guy that does matter more. But this is how points are gotten. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's all to inflate points. I get that. That's for sure. Dylan Larkin, man. Dylan Larkin is it's just that combination is just crazy.
Streaking right now. But they, again, they did still lose that game to Seattle. And if they all of a sudden lose 4 or 5 in a row, I'm not going to be shocked either. They're giving up a lot of goals. Billy Husso is giving up a lot of goals.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, he's giving up a lot. He is. No question about it. And they're scoring a lot. They are not exactly the kind of team Yzerman wants them to be.
They have the most goals in the league right now.
Yeah, but and they're one of the top 2 scorers in the league, right there. And it's kind of nice to see Dylan Larkin do something like this for a bit, though, and get some props.
It is, because you're right. He kind of got pigeonholed for a while. And honestly, Steve Yzerman's to blame because all the nagging about the contract, I do think, really kind of made people think oh, maybe Larkin's not that good. And we forget he's great defensively, super fast. He just happens to be a goal-scoring center, a shoot-first center, which is a little different. But it's not like he can't be a playmaker either. Just not his big strength. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, really good. So this next one's for Randy, Mr. Workman in the chat room. What do these players have in common? Okay, these are the players with the most shots this year without a goal. Ready? Mm-hmm. The number 1, Michael Backlund, 21 shots without a goal. Number 2, Matthew Tkachuk, 21 shots without a goal. Number 3, Nazem Kadri, 20 shots without a goal. And number 4, Johnny Gaudreau, 19 shots without a goal. Top 4 players.
4 former Flames or current Flames.
Right. That's pretty bizarre. I mean, that's pretty great. It's pretty strange that they'd all be and this is something that, but I know people in Calgary have been complaining about forever, that they have terrible shooting percentage up there. And
Mangiapane.
Right.
Giovanni's 5 points in 6 games, Mike.
He's killing it, and I'm not.
He'll be in the top 10.
I'll have my time with him.
When is your time? Are you going to throw a party if he gets 70 points? He's never doing it.
Eck is going to throw a party for Mangiapane, Thomas Greiss.
Oh yeah, no. They're very different. You guys are ridiculous. Here's Randy's response to us: 4 bozos, Eck.
I mean, 55 points is the high for Andrew Mangiapane.
Yeah, but look at that year he played 55 points. His time on ice was ridiculous. It was so low. He was the top scorer per minute that he played that year. It was just crazy.
Okay, but here's the thing about him. And this year he's back down to 15-51. There's a reason, Eck. And the reason is his two-way game isn't great. And he's more like JVR than he is like Jack Hughes. And so based on that, they're never going to give him 18 minutes a game.
No. No,
I don't think he's anything like JVR.
No, as far as just being a goal scorer, Mangiapane doesn't have much other use.
Yeah, he also
You're
kills
not gonna
penalties
get-
for them, though. He's a penalty killer for them. I mean, he does things. He does other things. Like,
he's a good third line winger. He's not
he's a second line winger, Mike.
for them. He is, but
For any team,
on a good team, he's a good third line winger.
maybe a very good team, but
he's Frank Vetrano light.
I mean,
No,
he's
he's
probably
not.
on the second pairing of the penalty kill, so that's fine. But my basic point is, there's a reason they don't give him the amount of ice time that you would give him. There's a reason.
Yeah. I'm sure there is, and it's been a couple coaches now, and I was blaming it on Sutter before, and I was just saying Sutter.
You don't think they'd want more if they could get more points out of him by playing him more minutes? They simply would do that, and
But he is a spark plug, and he's very smooth skating. He's got a really nice shot. There's a lot of people in Canada that Hockey Canada loves him. I don't know, they've always loved him.
Well, I mean, look, I'd want him on my team when I can have this big team for Hockey Canada, and I got to find role players. Yeah. He's a really good role player to have.
Yeah, no, he really is, and he showed up for Hockey Canada a bunch. So he's one of those guys that they like when guys show up for him. But I don't think he's anywhere near he's not a JVR type player at all. Like he's much more of a physical player than that.
He's better defensively than JVR, but he's not good enough to get 18, 20 minutes a game. So he's not in the upper echelon of defensive players either.
So he's a penalty killer according to Randy. Mangiapane is what he is. He's a penalty killer. But that's ridiculous. I mean, he scores. Look at all the goals he's got. I mean, he can't just be a penalty killer.
No, but he means there's a limit to what you get out of him. That's what he means.
Oh, for sure. But maybe Sutter was maximizing that with 15 minutes a game or whatever before. But
yeah,
I think those minutes are going to go up because definitely have to go up.
So let's talk about a few things. Russ mentioned the Caps Leafs game. It was hilarious in the sense that, boy, Washington, their single-minded purpose yesterday was to get Alex Ovechkin on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Took 14 shots.
I talked about this yesterday.
He almost outshot the Leafs. The Leafs had
did, but I didn't think they were at that point yet.
It felt like they had to be, and this was because there was a little extra part of this being the first game of the big frenzy night. I felt like this was Ovechkin's moment. Like he was going to step up.
And his career numbers against Toronto, he's always killed.
Yeah, you mentioned that too. Yes,
he didn't look good. Ovechkin did not look good.
No.
Penalty shot. There's a lot of things he didn't look good on.
Well, he's never been good on penalty shots. They made that apparent on the broadcast. I don't know what his numbers are in shootouts, but they're not. They don't use him as the top 3 in shootouts.
Here's the one thing I told Mike, and just so you know, when Lemieux kind of came back and when he was hurt and he came back with the back thing and he wasn't quite right, that's what Ovechkin looks like now. He's not really engaging much. He's not back checking much.
Yeah.
He'll make the play that he has to make, but he's hanging out at center ice looking for passes. And on the power play, he wants the puck at least 3 or 4 times to shoot. And he's missing the net too.
Yeah, he's just not. His one-timer is way, way off. And that's true too. There's no question about it.
But
he can work his way through it though, probably, but at the same time, my big thing is, at what cost do you bring Ovechkin's game back? Because I still think that's going to affect the Capitals in a negative way.
Yeah, and I don't think they care, Ak. I think they're single-minded in the purpose of we're going to get Ovechkin that record and the team overall be damned. Now, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I mean, hell, he could get the record and they could finish in last place. But, they could do both things at the same time. But they're under this fallacy that they could be competitive. And you've got too many players declining on that team. And like I said, I watched that game last night and, the Washington had 37 shots on goal and Joseph Wall played really good. So they did put pressure, but I never at any point when it was 4-0, and normally the Leafs, can find a way to blow leads like that. Was I scared that Washington was going to come back and win that game? Toronto got up 4-0, and they were home and cooled out by the middle of the third period at 4-1. There were never any risk of losing that game.
I'm going to answer Dan B. I know the answer to this because he's he doesn't understand why they don't put a guy on Ovechkin on the penalty kill. I'll tell you why. Because Ovechkin's so far on the other side, they always think they can keep the puck trapped on the other side and not get the pass to him. And to the Leafs' credit, they did that a lot on their penalty kill. He didn't get a ton of shots on the power play, like great looks. He had some, but not like he usually gets.
Now, the other game that I was watching, and I was watching two games at the same time, was Buffalo and Ottawa. And this game was wild.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the second period, because I was in contact with a reporter friend up in Ottawa, the Senators thought their season might be done because Brady Tkachuk collided with Peyton Krebs, grabbed his shoulder, and skated quickly off the ice. People thought his shoulder was dislocated or something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he came back like nothing was wrong in the third period. And to prove nothing was wrong, he gets into a fight with Alex Tuch. And if you look at Alex Tuch's face, Brady Tkachuk's right hand did a pretty nice job on Alex Tuch's face. But then these two teams are so similar in their setup. They've got great young talent up the middle at forward on the top two lines. They've got really good franchise cornerstone defensemen, Darlene Power, Sanderson, Shabbat, Chikrin. Good defensemen. Their goaltending is a big question mark, and they still do not have any defensive concept whatsoever.
The difference, Mike, for me is Ottawa has some key experienced guys that Buffalo doesn't have. Like having Giroux and Tarasenko, Buffalo doesn't have anybody like either of those two guys.
Well, okay. Giroux is still a top 6 guy, and Tarasenko is probably, I think he's playing on their third line.
He's getting good numbers right now.
Yeah, but I mean, Buffalo has those experienced guys, but they're lower down in their lineup. Oposo and Gergensons and Tuch. I mean, Tuch is a top 6 guy for them.
Yeah, but those guys aren't in the Giroux Tarasenko world. Like Giroux and Tarasenko are all stars. They've been all around. They played for their country.
Skinner. I mean, Skinner's.
No. I mean, Oposo. No, none of those guys. I mean, they're all good role players and they're all good first or second liners.
Right,
but I feel like there's a little bit more like grounding when things start to go wrong on Ottawa than there are when things start to go wrong in Buffalo.
Well, lots of things are going wrong in Ottawa. That's the problem, Mac, and that's why I'm saying.
And there's no question that things are going wrong in Buffalo too. So
the two things, like I said, Buffalo was up 5-1 at the end of the second period, and they held on by their fingernails because they took 2 stupid penalties in the last 5 minutes of the game and allowed Ottawa to crawl back to 5-4. But I mean, the problem with both of these teams is that they're young. They want to play wide open, throttle open offense. And when they try to play strap down defensive hockey, they can't do it.
Yeah,
it comes at the cost of their offense. Buffalo allowed 13 goals in 6 games, which is good. It's only scored 13 goals in 6 games. They didn't score more than 3 in any of their first 6 games, which is unheard of for a team that was 3rd in the league in scoring. And now they open it up 6 goals and score 6 goals against Ottawa, and they give up 4. So they can't play defensive hockey, and they risk losing in a 7-6 shootout when they play wide open offense.
That ends up being the issue with young teams that we've talked about many times.
No, it is. It is.
That is what you're going to see.
I was going to say something I want to mention because it starts with the Leafs and then it ends with the Rangers Flames game. So Mike Kelly, who does stats for like NHL Network, he's okay. I think sometimes he gets a little too carried away in the stat world. In case my camera had a problem there. And what he said was Joseph Wall is the best goalie in the NHL right now.
Wow.
And, the funny thing is like if anybody watched the Calgary game yesterday, they would say, oh my God, Igor Shesterkin was unbelievable. Like he stopped goals that were definite goals. It's not even funny. And so, I looked up Shesterkin and what he's doing, right? In his losses, and this is like the Rangers issue too. In his losses, he's been about an .850 or an .890 save percentage, but in his wins, he's like a .960.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's the reason they're winning. No offense to Joseph Wall, he's not the reason the Leafs are winning.
No, but okay, this is why I hate analytics and statisticians.
Right.
Because Joseph Wall has played 3 games.
Right.
Cool your jets. This is Ranger Suarez is as good as Christian.
Right.
But Max Domi said that Jason Wall reminded him of Carey Price.
Right. Well, okay.
You can say that.
He can say that he's big and tall and lanky.
Or is it personality-wise? So just his approach
He's
mainly.
say like 80 and 50 games at least this year before you start realizing if he might be.
Yeah, Max. I mean, no offense to Max Domi, he's got to realize that he is in a market that when you say something like that, they're going to take the ball and run with it. Now, he was in Montreal.
Anyone knows that market? It's Max Domi. Like,
no, not necessarily. He never.
He does know that. He knows the market.
Until this year, he's never played there.
Yeah, but he's lived there.
He grew up there. That doesn't mean he knows the market.
I mean, I just don't think he cares. Like, I think like in a
I think you're right. I don't think he cares.
Typical Domi fashion, he's going to say what he's going to say.
Yeah, but the problem is, by saying that, he puts the weight on that kid. It's like
it wasn't that. I mean, maybe I'm exact. I'm like I said. He reminded him of Carey Price in his approach and in his calmness and that kind of stuff. That's not really putting weight on the kid. It's just simply saying that he's like,
At this point, you don't mention in the same breath anybody and Carey Price.
Right.
Okay? Nobody.
Yeah, that's fair. The other thing I was going to mention about the Ranger game is, as I mentioned yesterday, Lafreniere scored again. So he's got 3 goals in 6 games. And I would think that would be enough to cool people down for a little bit. He doesn't have any assists, but that's okay. Like, if he ends up with 25, 28 goals, everybody should just chill out. And
who is he, Resto? Tell me who Lafreniere is. Like, is he Glenn Anderson?
He's a mixture of guys, Zach.
Is he Glenn Anderson? Like, is he like? I've been trying to come up with what he actually is.
No, I think there's a little Glenn Anderson in him. I think that's right. But he's more physical. He's actually really physically strong. If you look at him,
Anderson was pretty physical. Like he was not. I
know, but I think if you look at difference of eras,
for sure.
Anderson early on was physical. By the time he got to the Rangers, he wasn't. So, like, I think you're right about that.
He was cheap. He was
always cheap.
But Lafreniere is physically strong, like a lot of guys in this era. But he's a different player now than what he was in juniors, and I think that's the problem everybody has with him is in juniors. He could get away with not being the fastest guy. Maybe his release was a microsecond slower than some NHLers, but goals would go in for him there. But what he has figured out now is he is getting around the net, and he's really good at deflecting. And so that's something now that is going to add to his goals. So, he's a winger, so I can't say he's like Mike Richards, but I think you might get similar offense to Mike Richards if he starts doing that at the net.
I can see that. Like when Richards played the wing quite a bit too. Like,
and he did play some wing. You're right. And so I think people have to like tamp it down now and say, okay, he's not going to be a superstar, but he could be still a very, very effective player and an all-star. And I think he has started to figure out some of these things. And obviously playing with Panarin doesn't hurt. But
that's where I think that I just waited for that pairing to be put together over these years. Like, it just doesn't make any sense that it wasn't before because he is a skilled player. Like, he's a highly skilled player. Yeah. And who has been able to hone himself. It's a very interesting situation. Like, what would have happened to him had he gone to a team where he wasn't put on the third line right away? Like, if he had gone to a team where, like, say what we're seeing with Connor Bedard, if he goes to a team where he's immediately the centerpiece, like, obviously
I think he would have developed quicker because he, with the skill players that the Rangers have, which is definitely more than what Chicago has now, he would have developed quicker, but he never really got that chance. So
right. I did not see the Makar goal last night, Randy.
I didn't either. I didn't see it.
Did you see it, Mike?
I did not.
Well, that's why we haven't mentioned it. But
I'll look at it now. I'll watch.
We'll check it out. A couple of players I want to talk about, though, I think are struggling, and I think that they are maybe symptomatic of what's going on with their teams. Chris Letang. He is very much like, he has been in many ways, the most valuable Penguin that people just never realize is the most valuable Penguin. Like, but having seen the Penguins plenty of times, and, we've seen the Penguins a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Letang is as valuable as Sidney Crosby on some nights. And he is definitely huge. And he has been absolutely nothing this year. Like, he has been he's not on the first power play unit anymore. That's kind of crazy. He's just not putting up any numbers.
Well, the surprising thing is that they talked a lot about using both Letang and Carlson on the power play. And then they start the season and it's 4 forwards and 1 defenseman. And of course, you're going to put Carlson on the first power play. So you're relegating a guy who has won 3 Stanley Cups on a second power play. Yeah. And that's just not accentuating as positive. So
what that does for the core of this team, which is very much what makes this team go, because he's part of that core, it becomes like a really unhappy, bangler in the works, as they say. Like it's there. It's going to bother them.
They feel like they're a work in progress though, because I watched a lot of that Dallas-Pittsburgh game, and Pittsburgh looked really good early, but Dallas just out-physicaled them. They did a lot of things that you expect Dallas to do over time in that game, and Pittsburgh hasn't even figured out their power play yet. Like even Malkin's unsure what to do, and I know that's the addition of Carlson, but you got to figure in the next 5 games. I think it'll get figured out, and that's when we'll know if they're actually a contender or not.
Right.
Yeah. And I know people around the Eastern Conference are saying this under their breath. Won't the Boston Bruins just friggin' go away? I mean, they started 6-0. They lost a Hall of Famer in Patrice Bergeron. They lost a great center in David Krejci, and they just keep going. And they're a system team. They're getting enough offense from guys like Pasternak and Marchand. They plug in the young kids like this Poitras, and they bring back Lucic, and they just they're just a machine that doesn't deviate. It's just this.
Right.
Right now, it's just. I mean, like everybody was saying, "Oh, they're going to drop off and they're not going to miss the playoffs." They're 6-0. They're leading the NHL. They're right now. They're in the first place for the President's Trophy. I know it's 2 weeks in, but still, people thought this team was going to struggle, and they're not.
I definitely thought they were a playoff team. I just don't think they're. I don't think they're the top. They're in the top 3 in that division still at this point. Like,
I do, because I looked at the division and said it's not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But do I believe in them? Like they could go more than 2 rounds in the playoffs? No.
No, that's the thing. Like how the longevity they'll have as the season goes on is always been their issue. And last year you saw it clearly. I mean, when they had everybody there, they ran out of steam in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I felt
they've given up 7 goals.
No, they've got some great defense. They still have some great players there.
Listen,
you got to remember that
Poitras has 5 goals, right? And we've seen him play in the AHL. Is that not how you pronounce it, Mike?
I think that's the way I'm pronouncing it. Somebody will point out that it's wrong.
Right. I think it's close.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Or something.
No, I don't think it's that. But anyhow, look, he's got 5 goals. I don't know if he's going to be scoring goals all year. I don't know that. He's got good speed. Maybe there's some magic there. If there is, I'd be surprised. But we'll see. Oh,
Yeah.
Kenny says Poitras. Okay, I haven't heard that. All right.
Poitras.
Patra.
Well, he's something. I mean, and this is
That rolls off the tongue.
Unlike the Boston Bruins to have a player like that show up out of nowhere and kind of like become, as Bergevin, obviously you can't replace him, but at the same time, he wasn't the biggest factor last year. That the couple of those, the guys that they lost were good. I mean, Krejci and Bergevin, they make everybody better. They bring solidity to the team and all that stuff, but they weren't the greatest. And I really didn't think that was. I don't know. I kind of felt like they would still be there, and they have goaltending. They still have 2 good goalies. They really do. I mean, that's
the goaltending's excellent. At some point, they'll have to make a decision on that, but their goaltending's excellent.
The Edmonton Oilers coach has to be on his way out. Like this feels like it's very the pressure building in Edmonton is just ridiculous right now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's all his fault.
I wonder why.
I don't know if it's all his fault, but
no, it's not.
I don't know if it's his fault either, but the reality is they are not. I mean,
Ken Holland should fire himself.
They're being outshot 10-1, and they're being outscored 10-1 in the 3rd period so far this year. Like that's going to kill you, right? I mean, that's like the reality is you can't do that. And as Mark Spector, who friend of the show, is a great guy.
Yeah, I saw him the other day when.
Wrote really appropriately. I thought was that you can't go on the ice every game having the worst of the 2 goalies on the ice, and you can't go on the ice every game having the most inconsistent of the defenses on the ice.
Right.
Like every game, he says you might have the most dynamic offense, but you always have the other team always has a better goalie. The other team always has a more consistent defense.
But you won't be able to upgrade either one of those positions at this time of the season. You can't.
Right. And the reality is,
my answer would be, go get Bruce Boudreau and at least become the best offensive team you could be. Because I think that's the only way they could survive.
And that's how they're built. They're built to do. That's what they're built to do. They're built to outscore teams, and Campbell's built to give up 4 goals and win.
Right.
and that's the reality of what they set up for. They're not. And this coach has been very much trying to push
He
defense.
wants them to play two-way hockey. I heard the quote when the season started, but it's not working.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit the personnel. Like it just does, and that's when you have to look at the coach to make.
Well, but again, here is their dilemma, and they have experience now. They've been in the playoffs. They've gotten to a conference final. They have two of the best players in the league, and you cannot win playing throttle open, wide open offensive hockey, even if you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
You can in the regular season.
You cannot win in the playoffs playing that way.
No, but what can they do? Like right now, they can't play defenseman.
That's their best. You're right but you're both right that that's their best option.
Just to get points to get in playoff position. Sorry.
Because that's their only option because they can't play defense. They don't have the goaltending.
Right.
Gee, what a shock.
Well, I mean, but again, like what X said is true. I think if you manage Campbell, you can get these 5-4, 6-5 wins. No problem. Like
they're putting Campbell in positions. I mean, listen, we know he's not the stablest of mental goalies. Like he's always been the kind of goalie that when he's confident, he's really good, and when he's not confident, he's not good. So, but the reality is, like, you know, you're not going to give a guy confidence by having him to be the key factor in every game, like by winning games 2-1, by winning games 3-2. That's just that puts everything on the goalie, right? And that's what this team shouldn't be doing. This team should be scoring 4 goals a game.
GSM has a point. He's saying back in the day, Lemieux wasn't looked at as a leader until he won a cup, blah, blah, blah. I can't not look at Connor McDavid as a leader because they're not winning a cup. It's not his fault that they didn't draft right. It's not his fault that they didn't make enough trades. It's not his fault they didn't shore up goaltending. But is he a great leader? No, he's not a great leader. Not yet.
Yeah, I think he's a great leader. I disagree. I honestly think that anybody if you've watched Edmonton play in the playoffs the last couple of years,
there's
nobody better than that.
No, that's baloney. I'm sorry. He's a great player. Being a great player.
No, I'm not talking about player.
Well, no, I know, but let me finish. He's a great player. That doesn't make him a great leader.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But when you see how he reacts on the ice, how he reacts to things happening on the ice, how he, will sacrifice.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. I just say, if you're looking for locker room speeches, you're not getting it out of Connor McDavid.
No.
Well, but there's lead by example, guys, and it's like he is, and listen, leading by example is ridiculous to say with Connor McDavid because no one else can do what he does.
Crosby is a lead by example player,
right? But he's a great leader.
He is, but he'll call people out too.
He will, and I don't think Connor McDavid doesn't call people out from people I've talked to. I don't get that impression. Like, and also just I don't think I've seen more passion, just wearing his heart on the sleeve than I've seen.
Oh, he's got a lot of passion. I'm never going to doubt that.
I mean, being a superstar, he plays like the game means everything to him. So, and that's all you can ask for.
It does, and I think when he walks away from that market, he's going to feel like he did everything he could do.
The Edmonton Oilers are they're a creation of bad construction. They are a creation of bad allocation of funds. You don't go out and sign Zach Hyman for $5.5 million or Evander Kane for $5 million when you can't play defense. Your defense, I mean, they finally learned their lesson. The Ekholm acquisition was a fine acquisition. The problem is they need 2 more defensemen like them. They've got 3 good defensemen on that team. They've got Bouchard, they've got Nurse, and they've got Ekholm. The second half of their defense with Broberg and Kulak and whoever else they play out there is substandard. And if you look at the teams that are winning Stanley Cups and you're talking about Vegas, they've got 6 towering blue liners.
Yeah, they haven't drafted enough good defensemen. They haven't traded for enough good defensemen. It's a blind spot. They've tried to correct it, but they've tried to correct it with like the Chris Russells of the world and guys who shot block. And that's fine, but you also the speed then is the problem. So that's why when you get these older defensemen and try and plug them in, it doesn't work with them because guys in the West are too fast for that.
Yeah, no, that's been the case for sure.
If you were going to overspend like they have on certain players, then do what Vegas did and overspend on Alex Pietrangelo.
Right.
Before we go, I want to show one thing. I thought I found this on Reddit with hockey, but it's like this is a really funny thing. I thought this is a man cave concept. I love
goalie pads.
That's pretty awesome. Like to make a leather couch out of old goalie pads.
Those look like
they don't smell though. Like I would have to spray them.
Yeah, all of my goalie pads are like that. Reek to high heaven. Like
that's what I mean. That's my only issue.
Those look like the old goalie pads that I used when I played street hockey, because before they had the street hockey pads with the foam and the plastic. Yeah. Everybody who played street hockey around my area played with old hand-me-down actual hockey goalie pads,
which weighed 1,000 pounds because they were
right when they got soaked.
They were waterlogged from playing on the ice, and they never drained, and they got heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier.
Well, that's why you see in my neighborhood, the kids down the street got smart, and they got the plastic goalie pads because A, you could slide on the street with them, and B, the backing of them was just foam. Right. And so it was the better newer foam at the time.
Those those goalie pads, like the old plastic Mileck goalie pads. It's funny. They make a version of them, but they don't make them quite the way they made them then.
No, they don't make them with the foam anymore. They make them basically of the plastic.
It's solid plastic, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. You need that foam because I think it was.
The foam was huge. I mean, I'm sure that they give enough, but yeah, for anybody who plays street hockey at all, that I use my ice hockey pads on the street, but not my old ones.
the ice hockey pads that we had, the stuffing started to fall out of them, so we ended up stuffing like old T-shirts and stuff like that in them because after a while were you shooting with a frozen tennis ball, it started to hurt.
Yeah. Oh, poor Mike.
Yeah.
Oh man, those. If you really want to talk about that, remember the pink street hockey ball? Like we went from there was red, there was orange, there was blue, and then my went to pink because the blue was for cold weather, and it was awful. No one ever liked it.
We never used that one. Yeah,
it was like a rubber ball. It had to be like it was on the tundra or so whatever. The orange ball, which was for hot weather, would turn into a rock and break in half sometimes when you used it in cold weather.
Yes.
And then came the pink Mileck hockey ball, which was like the perfect
middle. I vaguely remember the pink. I was almost out of the street hockey game at that point and going into roller hockey at that point.
Was that the Hockey Fights Cancer?
No, it was way before that. It was just one of those things. And the funny thing about it was I actually did play in a game one time on a deck hockey game, which deck hockey, I don't know if you guys
did play deck hockey too. One game.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. I played one game. My brother said, "Hey, can you play for my deck hockey team? Because I know you can play a little bit." I score like 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
I embarrassed half of his team because I guess they weren't at that level. And my brother never invites me back again.
Oh man.
Never.
Where was that? Where'd you play deck hockey?
It was on Long Island, so it was at a place called Heiser Lane.
Yeah.
And it was, it was good. It was it was like perfect for me. Like I still had the endurance. I had a good shot.
Yeah.
And they didn't want any part of me because I was better than my brother. And then I was better than some of the players on his team, and they didn't like that.
Well, I'll give you this one before we end the show. I played in an intramural floor hockey league in college, and I normally played goal, and my buddy, he was the goaltender, so I was frozen out of playing goal, so I was playing defense. He got so pissed off at me because I would slide and block as many shots as possible, and he wasn't getting enough action that I didn't get invited back the next year.
A moment in my life that I really want to forget, but I'll share it. This is really was in deck hockey. We were playing in a
was that when Dustin Leeds scored on you? No, I'm kidding.
No, he did not score on me.
I know.
You were there, Russ.
I know.
He'll never forget that.
That's a point of aggravation.
It's on my Twitter. It's on my Twitter.
No, it's a good save. It's a really good save.
It's immortalized on my Twitter feed. No, so I was taking a lot of penalties in goal. I was a cheap goalie. And which might surprise everybody, but I had like the Billy Smith moves. I was always 31 because I wanted to be Pelle Lindbergh, but I would do the thing where you would cover with your hand like this, and at the same time put your waffle up like this. So if someone came down, they would just hit their head on your waffle. Yeah. That was a good move. But we were playing in a game where it was a playoff game, and we were out of it. And somebody put their hand on the ball in the crease. So it ended up a penalty shot for the other team. And this big jerk guy who'd been hounding me all game and everything like that took the penalty shot and came in on me, and we were down by 6 goals, and there was like 30 seconds left. Well, I decided that I was going to take matters into my own hands as he came towards me. So I grabbed the end of my butt end, my goalie stick like this, and put it out to the side, and literally swung it full force in the air as he came close to me. I whacked the kid in the head.
Wow.
Knocked him out.
So Lindy Ruff was in your league.
I felt like immediately, like, what the hell did I do? I just felt like awful immediately. Like, that was the kind of thing where you just, your adrenaline, testosterone just got going.
See, that's the difference between you and Billy Smith. Billy Smith didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I did. And I was like, oh, what did I just do? Like, that kind of thing.
No conscience.
And Dan, who covers our Minnesota Wild, he was on that team at the time. And I remember him saying to me yelling to me from the bench before that penalty shot, he's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, don't. He knew I was going to do something stupid. But anyway, it was a horrible moment. And I apologized to the kid. I apologized.
That's good. I'm glad you did that.
The kid's parents, I felt terrible. I went and visited him. And I said, I really did feel bad. I honestly, I was suspended and should have been suspended.
Yeah.
Forever, honestly.
And he's just now getting out of a wheelchair.
No, he's fine. He's fine. Actually, he was fine pretty quickly. He had a helmet on. I hit him in the helmet. I didn't.
Okay.
He had no concussion, which was.
You just had frustration built up, and that's how you.
Yeah, it was horrible. It's just like, so, when people ask me, like, how does somebody do that in a moment of like frustration in hockey when they use something stupid? I'm like, I remember that I did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will all talk to you tomorrow.